Hey Hari, welcome to Inishra Thailand Govindadwipa's Monday morning class on Srimad-Bhagavatam. Today we are reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, entitled The Passing Away of Bhishma Deva, text 36. Before we read the text 1936, let's sing Jai Radha Madhav. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Shri Radhe. Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Jaya Panchatattva, 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 Jaya Panchatattva. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा देवी की जय, यमुना देवी की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishnu. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishnu. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamstu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, entitled The Passing Away of Bhishmadeva, Text 36. Vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā kumatim aharad ātma-vidyayā caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya mestu. Vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā kumatim aharad ātma-vidyayā caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya mestu. Vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā kumatim aharad ātma-vidyayā caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya mestu. Word by word. Vyavahita, standing at a distance. Pṛtanā, soldiers. Mukham, faces. Nirīkṣya, by looking upon. Sva-jana, kinsmen. Vadhād, from the act of killing. Vimukhasya, one who is reluctant. Doṣa-buddhyā, by polluted intelligence. Kumatim, poor fund of knowledge. Aharad, eradicated. Ātma-vidyayā, by transcendental knowledge. Yah, who. Caraṇa, to the feet. Ratiḥ, attraction. Paramasya, of the Supreme. Tasya, for him. Me, my. Astu, let there be. Translation: when Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance from observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The kings and the commanders were to stand in the front of the fighting soldiers. That was a system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or ministers of defense as they are today. They would not stay home while the poor soldiers or mercenaries were fighting face to face. This may be the regulation of modern democracy, but when actual monarchy was prevailing, the monarchs were not cowards, elected without consideration of qualification. As it was evident from the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all the executive heads of both parties, like Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Duryodhana, were not sleeping. All of them were actual participants in the fighting, which was selected to be executed at a place away from civil residential quarters. This means that the innocent citizens were immune from all effects of fighting between the rival royal parties. The citizens had no business in seeing what was going to happen during such fighting. They were to pay 1/4 of their income to the ruler, whether he be Arjuna or Duryodhana. All the commanders of the parties on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were standing face to face, and Arjuna saw them with great compassion and lamented that he was to kill his kinsmen on the battlefield for the sake of the empire. He was not at all afraid of the giant military phalanx presented by Duryodhana, but as a merciful devotee of the Lord, the renunciation of worldly things was natural for him, and thus he decided not to fight for worldly possessions. But this was due to a poor fund of knowledge, and therefore it is said here that his intelligence became polluted. His intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Apparently, Arjuna's intelligence became polluted because otherwise there would not have been a chance to deliver the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for the good of all polluted conditioned souls engaging in material bondage by the conception of false material body. The Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Ātma-vidyayā, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namashrestham Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshthavati Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho राधिका माधवाशं प्राप्तो यस्य प्रतितकृपया श्रीगुरुं तं नतोऽस्मि। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुता पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च अददन्दस्तृणं दन्ते इदं याचः पुनः पुनः श्रीमन्रूपपदाम्भोजं धूलिस्यां जन्म जन्मनि। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So Srimad-Bhagavatam Canto 1 Chapter 9 Text 36 vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā kumatim aharad ātma-vidyayā yash caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya mestu. Translation: When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Srimad-Bhagavatam is full of such wonderful prayers by the pure devotees of Krishna. Here, this prayer is from Bhishma Deva himself, who is one of the 12 great authorities on religious principles, Mahajana. Bhishma Dev is saying in this verse that scene in the battlefield of Kurukshetra where Arjuna was thinking whether he should fight the battle or not. He was in a predicament situation. He did not understand what to do. So Arjuna then says to Krishna, Karpanya dosho apahata svabhava pruchhami tvam dharma sammoda cheta yashreyasyan nishchitam bruhitanme shishyasteham sadhi mam tvam prapanna. This is what Arjuna says after giving a lot of logic in terms of not to fight. So Arjuna gives a lot of reasons to Krishna, telling Krishna why he does not want to fight. But in the end, Arjuna says that now I am surrendering onto you, O Krishna. Now you become my guru. So until that point, the discussion between Arjuna and Krishna was more on a friendly plane. But after that verse, where Arjuna actually says that karpanya dosho apahata svabhava, he says that I'm not able to understand what I should do, Krishna. Pruchhami tvam dharma sammodha cheta. So Arjuna says that I don't know what is the religious principles that I need to execute now. Whether I should fight the battle and kill my own kinsmen, or whether I should just renounce everything and just meditate upon Krishna. So what should I do? So he was in that predicament. Pruchhami tvam dharma sammodha cheta. Then Arjuna says, yes, shreyasyan nishchitam bruhitanme. Oh Krishna, please tell me what is ultimately beneficial for me. That is Shreya. There are two categories of activities that we can get involved in. One is Preya and one is Shreya. Preya is something which gives immediate satisfaction. But in the long run, it is going to not help one in terms of growth. Whereas Shreya initially might feel uncomfortable, but in the longer goal, it is going to enhance the growth of the person. So in that verse, Arjuna says, yes, shreyasyan nishchitam bruhitanme. Please, O Krishna, please tell me what is ultimately beneficial for me. Nishchitam bruhitanme, shishyasteham sadhi mam tvam prapannam. Arjuna says that, O Krishna, I am your disciple now. Shishyasteham sadhi mam tvam prapannam. And I am surrendered onto you. I have surrendered myself to you. That is the way of receiving transcendental knowledge. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. The way of receiving transcendental knowledge is tadvidhi pranipatena. Surrender. Pariprashnena. The next is asking relevant questions which are conducive for spiritual development. And sevaya, and rendering service to the spiritual master. These are the three conditions. Pranipata, the first is surrendering onto the spiritual master. The next is pariprashna, asking relevant questions for spiritual development. And the third is service, sevaya. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Then upadyakshanti te jnanam. Then the reception of transcendental knowledge can be done. The prerequisites is surrender, asking relevant questions to the spiritual master, and service to the spiritual master. And then the spiritual master is giving the transcendental knowledge. Upadyakshanti te jnanam. And how are they able to give the transcendental knowledge? Because jnaninas tattvadarshina. Because the spiritual master who has wisdom is knower of the truth, the absolute truth. So what is the absolute truth? It is said, vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. That is said in Srimad-Bhagavatam, that the absolute truth can be known in three different phases. But it is non-dual. Why the absolute truth is non-dual? Because in spiritual world, there is no difference between spirit and matter. The duality happens only in the material world. Dvandva, that is called dvandva. So, nirmana moha, jitasanga dosha, ātma-vidyayā, vinivritta-kāma, dvandvair vimukta, sukha dukkha sangye, gacchant amudha, padam avyayam tat. Krishna gives the example of who is a person who can reach the padam avyayam. Padam is the destination and avyayam is something that is inexhaustible, something that is eternal, something that is ever existing. So who can reach that destination? The destination of total bliss, total eternality, total knowledge. Krishna gives what are the characteristics of such a person. Starts with nirmana moha. Nir is without and mana is pride. So one who is without pride. That is the first qualification. Nirmana moha, and without attachment. The attachment happens when the identification with the body happens. And that's the word here used, ātma-vidyayā. So that word is used in this verse by Srila Bhishma Deva. Kumatim aharad ātma-vidyayā. That's the third line in this verse. So kumatim is translated as poor fund of knowledge. Aharad, eradicated. Ātma-vidyayā, by transcendental knowledge. Yah, he who. So this is what Sri Krishna has done in the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna by speaking Bhagavad Gita. Of course, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport very nicely. He says that his intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this is Krishna says, Sa evayam mayate adya yoga prokta puratana bhaktosi me sakhacheti rahasyam hi etad uttama. Krishna mentions that he actually says that Ivam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivasvan manve pravha manur ikshāvake bravit evam parampara praptam imam rajar shayo vidu sakalene hamata yogo nashtha parantapa. This is so Krishna says how the transcendental knowledge is received. So Krishna says that he actually gave this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivasvan. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. So this is avyayam. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita can never be vanquished. Just like the eternal soul can never be vanquished. The eternal soul is eternally existing. Similarly, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is eternally existing. Manur ikshāvake bravit. So evam parampara praptam imam rajar shayo vidu. This is the way of receiving transcendental knowledge in disciplic succession. Parampara. Parampara is the disciplic succession. That's how the knowledge is saved. The purity of the knowledge is kept intact by this disciplic succession. And Imam Rajar Shreyo Vidu, who is the recipient of such a transcendental knowledge? Rajarshi, one who has the characteristics of a king and a saint. So both the characteristics. This is what Arjuna's characteristic was. Rajarshi, he was a Rajarshi. Imam Rajarshayo Vidu. Sakalene mahata yogo nashta parantapa. The nature of the material world is such that because it is based on matter, everything dissipates. That is the nature of the material world. And therefore, the Bhagavad Gita knowledge started dissipating as time passed in the material world. Therefore, Krishna personally came. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is the reason Krishna comes. Paritranaya sadhunam. To save the saintly persons. And vinashaya cha dushkritam. To annihilate the miscreants. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. To establish religious principles. Sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna appears in every millennium. This is the transcendental knowledge. So we were talking about how Arjuna is placed in that situation of being dharma sammodha cheta, not able to understand what his real religious duty is. But that is under the divine arrangement of Krishna. Because bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. So Arjuna is actually very dear devotee and very dear friend of Krishna. And therefore, he is able to understand the transcendental secret, the transcendental mystery of the transcendental knowledge. So this is the scene that Krishna has created in order to give the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And where is this instruction of Bhagavad Gita being given? It's not been given in a forest or a hermitage. It's not been given to the sages. It's been given in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where all the soldiers are present. Therefore, one of the main messages of Bhagavad Gita is where Krishna says, Karmanye-vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahetur bhur mate sangotsva akarmani. So Krishna says that Karmanye-vadhikaraste. The most important thing the living entity has to do is the karma. Whatever daily activities that has to be done in terms of engaging in Krishna consciousness. I think that is the most important thing. Karmanye-vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. But one should not be worrying about the result. In the natural tendency, human tendency is that any activity we do, we are wanting some good result for us. Whatever activity we do. And immediately we are getting bound by the action. Yajñarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. So Krishna mentions that all the activities has to be performed for the satisfaction of Yajna Purusha. The Yajna Purusha is Krishna, Vishnu. Yajñarthat karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If that is not done, then there is karma bandhana. One gets entangled in the actions and reactions. So therefore Krishna says, Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. Therefore, O son of Kunti, O Arjuna, do all your activities without attachment, mukta sanga, and samachara. with equanimity of mind. This is the instruction that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. That this is mukta sango naham vadi, dhrityutsaha samanvita, siddhya siddhyo nirvikara karta satvika uchyate. So one who is free from attachment, mukta sango, naham vadi, one who is not in an egoistic state of mind. That is a very important part. Ahankara vimudhatma karta hamiti manyate. Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha. Ya pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sa pashyati. So actually all the activities are being done by the modes of material nature. When we are in mode of goodness or even above mode of goodness in the transcendental state, we are engaging in these transcendental discussions, Krishna Katha. When we are in mode of passion, we are more lobha, there is greed, there is more action in terms of acquiring material things for sense gratification. So that is the mode of passion. And in the mode of ignorance, there is laziness. One does not want to do anything, one just wants to be lazy without doing anything. These modes are always affecting all the living entities. Tribhir gunamair bhaver ebhi sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabhi janati mamebhya paramavyayam. So Krishna says that all the living entities in this whole universe are under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Tribhir gunamair bhaver. So the three guna, there is the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tribhir gunamair bhaver ebhi sarvamidam jagat, the whole universe. Mohitam nabhi janati. When one gets absorbed in the mode of nature, one particular mode of nature, one does not see that Krishna is there everywhere. So Krishna actually mentions in so many places, like Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham tesha avastita. That by me, in my unpervaded form, I'm present everywhere. So in the form of his energy, Krishna is present everywhere. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha me pashyati tasya hamna pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. So Krishna says that one who sees me everywhere and everything in me, tasya hamna pranashyami. I never forget such a person, and such a person never forgets me. So in this particular verse, they are very nice. It's a very beautiful verse. Where in the end, the last line, caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya me astu. So caraṇa-ratiḥ, that's a wonderful, that's a very beautiful word. So attraction to the lotus feet of the Lord. Paramasya tasya me astu. Let me always have attraction to the lotus feet of the Lord. There is another beautiful verse where Krishna tvadiya padapangaja panjarandam adyaiva me vishatu manasa rajahamsa prana prayana samaye kaphavata-pittai kantha-varodhana vidhau smaranam kutaste. This is a very beautiful verse from the Mukundamala Stotra by Kulashekara Alvar. So that's a very beautiful verse where Kulashekara Alvar is saying that Krishna tvadiya padapangaja panjarantam adyaiva me vishatu manasa rajahamsa. So let the swan of my mind, manasa rajahamsa, get entangled in the network of your lotus feet. Krishna tvadiya padapangaja panjaranta. So pada pangaja panjaranta. So Krishna's feet is like a lotus flower, and let the swan of my mind get entangled in the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. Adyaiva me vishatu manasa rajahamsa prana prayana same kaphavata-pittai. So the prayer by Kulashekara Alvar is, at the time of death, when nothing is under my control, because no one knows when the last breath one is going to take. No one knows about it. So in that verse, it is said that when that moment happens, how will I be able to remember you, O Lord? If it is not always attached to your lotus feet, if the swan of my mind is not always attached to the network of your lotus feet, how will I be able to remember you at the time of death when things are not under my control? This is the situation of Bhishma Deva as well here. Bhishma Deva is pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore he is saying caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya me astu, that let my mind be attached to your lotus feet. Rati. So this is there is a, so we see that there is this adav shraddha tatha sadhu sangha bhajana kriya anartha nivritti syat. So this is nishtha ruchi asakti bhava prema. So this ruchi, this taste, is basically the attraction to the Lord, rati. So the taste for hearing and chanting about the Lord, the taste for remembering the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnum, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma-vidyayā. Iti pumsarpita Vishnu bhakti chet navalakshana kriyeta bhagavati adha tanmanye aditam uttamam. This is said by Srila Prahlad Maharaj about the 9 kinds of devotional service that everyone can get engaged in, starting from hearing about the Lord, Shravanam. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Korayo Uday. Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridayantasto hi abhadrani, Vidunoti Suhrit Satam. Satam Prasangat Mama Virya Samvido, Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Katha. Tad Joshanadashu Apavarga Vartmani, Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishyati. So this hearing about the Lord in the association of Satam, the devotees who are interested in hearing about the Lord. Madchitta madgat prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti. So that's the category of the devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord. So their mind is always absorbed in the Lord. Madchitta, madgat prana. Their whole life is involved in the service of the Lord. Bodhayanta parasparam. What are the activities they do? They are talking about the Lord. Bodhayanta parasparam. They are revealing their thoughts about the Lord to those devotees who are also in that same state. Bodhayanta parasparam. Kathayantascha mam nityam. They are always talking about Krishna. Mam. So Krishna is saying in this and that verse in Bhagavad Gita. Kathayantascha mam nityam. Nityam. Always. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. And how they are doing that with a lot of happiness, a lot of bliss. Because that is the natural state of all the living entities. This Nitya, Siddha, Krishna, Prema, Sadhya, Kabonai. Naturally, all the living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. Mame vamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana. Manashashtani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. So all the living entities are eternally part and parcel of Krishna. But when the identification with the mind and the five senses takes place, there is struggle in this material universe. Manashashtani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. And that is what was divinely arranged by Krishna for Arjuna. Vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā. So when Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, that is, seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield. This is what happens in the material world. Because immediately this is yasya ātma-vidyayā kunape tridhatuke svadik kalatrādishu bhaumya jadi yatirtha buddhi salilena karechit janeshu abhigneshu sa eva gokhara. This is what happens in the conditioned state in the material world. That the intelligence is polluted, the mind is polluted due to attachment to the external dress. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grunanti naroparani tatha shariraya vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that just like a person gives up the old clothes and puts on new clothes, similarly, the living entity gives up the old body and takes on a new body. Tatha shariraya vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So similarly, the living entity gives up the old body and takes in a new body. Therefore, dhiras tatrana mohyati. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantaram prapti dhiras tatrana mohyati. This is the ātma-vidyayā, the real knowledge about our eternal constitutional position. That there is a proprietor of the body within the body. Dehi. Dehino asmin yatha dehe. Within the body there is the proprietor of the body. Therefore there is kaumaram yavanam jara. There is childhood, there is youth, and there is old age. Tatha dehantaram prapti. So similarly, there will come a time when the body has to be given up. Therefore, dhiras tatrana mohyati. Therefore, a sober person does not get bewildered by these changes that are part and parcel of the material world. So the matter Shad-vikar. So it is said that 6 kinds of changes that takes place in the material world. It is naturally taking place in the material world. So the first is the living entity is taking birth, then the living entity is growing, then staying for some time. So that is the third. Fourth is producing byproducts. Fifth is dwindling. And the last stage is vanish. So it's called Shad-vikar, the 6 kinds of changes that is part and parcel of the material world. And that's the difference between the material world and spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, everything is spiritual. So that is there is no matter. It's all spirit. In the spiritual world, everything is spirit. Ananda chinmaya, rasa pratibhavitabhis. So that is the Goloka namni nijadhamni talecha tasya. Devi mahesha haridhama suteshu teshu. Tete prabhava nichaya vihitāśyayena Govindamādipuruṣam tamaham bhajami. That's the Goloka Vrindavana. That is the transcendental spiritual world. Natad bhasate suryo, na shashanko na pavaka, yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamam paramam mama. That is a spiritual world where there is no need of sun, there is no need of moon, there is no need of fire, there is no need of electricity. Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamam paramam mama. So once when one reaches that spiritual abode, one is eternally in the spiritual abode. Because that's the state of mind. It's the state of total surrender unto the Lord. Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasa gira nikilasva api avisthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. This is said in the scriptures that Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasa gira. If someone is doing all the activities as harer dasya, as a servant of Lord Hari, Sri Krishna, how? Karmana manasa gira. 3 ways. Through activities, karmana, through mind, manasa, and gira, through the speech. Nikilasva api avasthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. Even though staying within the material world, one is still in a liberated position. That is the state of pure devotees of Krishna, like Sri Bhishma Deva, who is saying this verse, for Arjuna. That is the state. They are eternally liberated. That is, they are in a state of. So this is the state where Arjuna says in the end, Nashto moha smritir labdva tvat prasadad mayachyuta sthitosmin gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. So in the beginning, Arjuna is saying that I am confused. I don't know what is the real religious principles to be executed. O Krishna, I am surrendering unto you. Please tell me what is ultimately beneficial for me. Yes, Shreyasyan Nishitam Grohidharme. Shishyasteham Sadi Mam Tvam Prapannam. I am surrendered unto you, O Krishna. Then in the end, Arjuna is saying, Nashto Moha. All my attachments have been destroyed. Smritir Labdva. I have gained back my transcendental knowledge. Tvat prasadat mayachyuta. Due to your costless mercy, O Achyuta. So Achyuta word is very important there. One who never falls down. So that is the meaning of Achyuta. Achyuta is the living entities. The living entities are susceptible to fall down due to their minute nature. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Achyuta. He never falls down. Whatever condition, he never falls down. So in the end, Arjuna is saying that Nashto moha smritir labdva tvat prasadat mayachyuta sthitosmin gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. All my doubts have been vanquished, and now I am going to do what you are telling me to do, O Krishna. Karishye vachanam tava. I am going to do what you are going to tell me, O Krishna. This is that's the state of surrender. when there is 100% trust that the direction to go is the direction in terms of rendering loving devotional service to the Lord. Bhaktya tva ananya shakya ahamevo vidho Arjuna gyatam drishtum cha tatvena praveshtam cha parantapa. So that's the state. So Krishna mentions that bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattva tato mam tato gyatva vishate tadantaram. That the way to know Krishna is through bhakti, through devotional service. Na sadhyate mam yogo na sankhya dharma uddhava na sva-jana-vadhād tapastyago yato bhaktir mamorjita. So Krishna says to Uddhava that I cannot be known by yoga, nor through sankhya, nor through dharma, nor through sva-jana-vadhād. Sva-jana-vadhād is self-study, nor through renunciation, nor through austerities. So na sadhyati mam yogo, na sankhya dharma uddhava, na sva-jana-vadhād tapastyago yato bhaktir mamorjita. That I can only be known through loving devotional service. That is the way of knowing the Lord. And that is what is happening in this verse as well. The pure devotional service is being highlighted in this verse. Because that is caraṇa-ratiḥ paramasya tasya me astu. This is what Bhishma Deva is saying in this verse. That let my mind be attached to your lotus feet. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions the Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Ātma-vidyayā, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe. So this is the statement of Ātma-vidyayā. That is the real knowledge. The real knowledge is the understanding that we are eternal. Adhyatma-jnana nityatvam tattva-jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam yadato ajnanam anyatha. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that this adhyatma-jnana, this knowledge about self, nityatvam, that is what one has to be in that state, always in the state of understanding that one is eternally part and parcel of the Lord. Jivera swarupaya krishnera nityadas. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam. And then tattva jnanartha darshanam. Knowing the real absolute truth. That absolute truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Yet Brahman is everything in the sense that the Lord is present in every nucleus. Paramanu chayantarastam. This understanding. There is no place where the Lord is not there. Ito narsimo parato narsimo yato yato yam itato narsimo. Bahir narsimo hridaye narsimo narsimam madim charanam. This is the state of Prahlad Maharaj. And then Narasimhadev actually comes out of that pillar to protect Prahlad Maharaj. When one is in that state of mind, then there is this reciprocal relationship between the Lord and the devotee. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyam. Mama vartamano vartante manushya partha sarvasha. In that reciprocal relationship, when one is fully surrendered onto the Lord is also tam stataiva bhajamyam. So the Lord says that I also love that person in the same way as the devotee is loving the Lord. Or it's actually more, as we can see in the whole Mahabharata, how Krishna is personally protecting the Pandavas every time. Each and every time the Pandavas are going through trials and tribulations, Krishna is personally there, protecting them. That is the nature of the Lord, Bhakta Vatsala. And that's why Krishna is also known as Bhakta Vatsala. One who is very dear to the devotees. That is the state of the Lord and the devotees. So in this verse, that is what we are seeing. The Deva is saying these wonderful prayers. Vyavahita-pṛtanā-mukhaṁ nirīkṣya sva-jana-vadhād vimukhasya doṣa-buddhyā aharad ātma-vidyayā caraṇa-ratiḥ tasya mestu. So when Arjuna is seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Such a beautiful verse. This is the conclusion of this verse, that let us always remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Let the lotus feet of the Lord always be the object of our attraction, for mind's attraction. As Krishna says, Maya sakta mana partha, yogam yunjam madashrayam, asamshayam samagram mam yatha jnasisi tachrun. So when the mind is attached to the Lord, Mai asakta mana partha, O son of Pritha, O Arjuna, then you're doing the yogam yunjam madashrayam. You're involving in the bhakti yoga by taking shelter of Krishna. And we are doing that. Asamshayam samagram mam. So Krishna says that undoubtedly you will know me in full. Samagram mam. Yatha jnasasi tachrunu. So you will know that, and therefore please hear from me. So when we are hearing from Krishna and his pure devotees, our mind is getting attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. And that is the transcendental state to be in. So that would be the conclusion from this verse. How the mind can be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. This is what Srila Bhishma Deva is saying in this verse, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 36. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about the transcendental verses of Srimad-Bhagavatam. If there is any comments or questions, we can discuss. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta-Swamini Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta-Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.